Welcome to week 1 of Plant Iowa's Forbe Friday. For the whole month of July, I'm going to cover 3 different Forbes and post it on Friday, Forbe Friday. The 3 plants this week, we got 3 great plants. Number 1, pale purple coneflower. Number 2, butterfly milkweed. Number 3, tall woodland bellflower. Starting off with pale purple coneflower, scientific name Echinacea pallida. This plant is known for its very distinct cone, dome-shaped flower with the pink petals that hang down. This is a great ornamental plant, great landscape plant, just a great plant overall, right? This plant is native to Iowa, found in mesic to dry prairies throughout the state. It's a great plant for pollinators. All sorts of bees and hummingbirds feed for the nectar. Seed is eaten by finches and other birds that have breaking type beaks. The seed, from a personal grower's experience, very sharp, so make sure to wear gloves if you're trying to propagate it. But it's got a they're not a huge seed, but they're very hard and very sharp. So for these birds to eat it, they need a kind of specialized breaking beak. This plant is great for your landscape, right? It's got a very dominant purple and pink flower with an orange hue to it. The bees, everybody loves it. It's a very different type of flower. So it's very obvious when it's in a planting or even just along your house. People are going to show up and they're going to say, wow, I love that flower. What is that? It's a great flower to have. Like I said, this plant is great for pollinators, especially bees, specifically a type of mining bee that is a host plant specialist on pale purple coneflower and narrow leaf coneflowers. This bee, Andrina heliantiformis, can only live on these 2 types of coneflowers. So it's very important for this bee specifically. Disclaimer, I'm no ethnobotanist, I'm no nutritionist, I'm not qualified to fully explain the full benefits of this plant. I think it's really interesting to know the history of this plant with native people and to try and do as they did and try and learn how this plant is more than a plant, it's a medicine as well. So from my little experience, here's what I can report back to you for pale purple coneflower. I know the flower head has a numbing effect when eaten, so does the leaves and the roots. It's also thought that by extracting the natural oils in the plant and making some sort of tincture, it can help fight the common cold and just with different respiratory things, it can help combat sickness. All in all, it's a great landscape plant. 10 out of 10 would recommend, and I know a guy if you need some pale purple coneflower. Our second plant for this video, I wouldn't say it's number 2, I wouldn't say it's number 1, I'd say it's a great plant. Butterfly milkweed. I'm sure most of you hopefully know this plant, and if not, I'm glad that I can be the one to introduce you to it. Asclepias tuberosa is a phenomenal wildflower native to the prairie region throughout Iowa, known for orange flowers, right? You don't see a whole lot of orange flowers, some marigolds, yeah, but those are lame. This is much cooler. This plant is another milkweed, so therefore it is a host plant to the monarch butterfly. Crucial plant, and I'd say one of the more ornamental and better milkweeds suited for your landscape. Along with the butterfly, this is a favorite plant for aphids. If you're worried about aphids, suck it up. They're a part of nature, right? They're part of the food chain. If you're not in a greenhouse, I wouldn't worry about it because there's going to be a bigger bug that's going to eat your aphids. So maybe like a cool ladybug. We all love ladybugs, so grow some milkweed to grow some butterflies, and in the process some aphids and some ladybugs, right? Circle of life. It's great. We love it. Butterfly milkweed is a great landscape plant, but somewhat difficult to get into your garden. Starting with its flowering and seed producing process. So step 1, this has to get pollinated, and it has kind of a tricky pollination process. So it prefers, like the flowering process is best done with a larger flying insect. So that removes a whole bunch of players. Generally like bumblebees, maybe some moths, potentially hummingbirds, but like not crawling insects as much. So there's a pollen sac that is stuck under the anthers. So to start, a bumblebee, your larger pollinating insect, animal, what have you, must fly into the flower. It's pollinating, trying to get nectar, has to pull this pollen sac off. That's already hard enough to do. lots of insects get stuck to it and can't fly away, and they die on the flower. So it's somewhat common to see dead insects inside the flower of a butterfly milkweed plant. So for it to happen, for the pollination to happen successfully, the bumblebee, what have you, must pull the sac off, fly to another flower, get it to detach and stick inside the other flower. And that's just to like a lot of them don't get pollinated. A lot of flowers don't get pollinated. Flowers profusely for a long time because it doesn't do well. There's not a great efficient system for the seed to be made. So you'll see pretty commonly that there'll be seed pods that aren't super viable and that don't have a lot of like fat, juicy seeds within it, and it's just kind of like papery discs that crumble apart in your hands. So that's step one, why they're difficult to get into your landscape. Step two, they don't do great from transplanting. So the butterfly milkweed, once established, can get tap roots down 10 feet or deeper. So good luck digging that out of your garden. If your neighbor says, "Oh, I ever like that plant?" "Oh, I'll dig it up for you." No, you can't. They're very deep and they don't like to be messed with. So transplanting it from one pot to another as a grower is difficult to ask, because if you break off even just a little bit of that end root, there's a chance that whole plant would just shrink up and die. And it's most of the time it's not super apparent that that's what happened. But though you'll transplant it from one pot to another, they'll look great and then they just wither and die. So that's why it's difficult to get into your landscape. But once it's in your landscape, it's a great landscape plant. As I said, host plant for monarch butterflies. Everybody loves a monarch. Very showy orange flowers, and a very well-behaved landscape plant, right? Very calm growing. Mine in my yard flowered in its second year, and they're just little baby clusters, so it's going to be a long-lived perennial once established, but to get it in your yard, it's going to be difficult. Interesting fact, butterfly milkweed is the only milkweed that doesn't have a latex white sap when you break part of it off. So as some of you probably know, the common milkweed, it's got the pink ball flowers. When you break a leaf off, it has the latex sap that kind of gets all over your hands, makes your hands all sticky. But the butterfly milkweed doesn't have that. That's pretty interesting, thinking ecologically then, because it's less toxic, right? So then think deeper. Monarchs are like poisonous, and it's because of what they eat. So I'm no bird, but if I was a bird, I'd like to know, how do you tell a monarch that's eating butterfly milkweed versus common milkweed, and is there a difference in their poison level, and do they taste different? That's food for thought as a bird. So the previous two were fairly common landscape plants. If you're in the like native plant community, you probably know of those two. The third one you might not know as much about. The previous two were like full sun prairie perennials. This is actually a woodland annual or biennial. It's called tall woodland bellflower, Campanula americana. This plant is native throughout Iowa, native to mesic moist woodlands. This is considered a very valuable pollinator plant. There's a lot of plants flowering in the prairie now, but it's a little bit different story for the woodland plants. There was a lot of spring ephemerals that happened early on in the spring and kind of like dying off and going back into hiding now that we're in the summer. But this plant is just starting to flower and will flower until later in the summer. This plant also flowers differently than most other plants do. For like blazing stars and what have you, generally the top flowers first and it flowers its way down. This plant starts in the middle of the plant and flowers up and down. So in the picture, you can see how it's starting in the middle because it's just starting to flower. So like yesterday, the more central flowers were open, and then today it went up a little bit, down a little bit, and tomorrow I'm sure it'll be the same thing. It'll just keep growing out. Tall woodland bellflower is specifically an awesome plant for your landscape and any woodland areas you have. It's difficult to find a plant that is one, tall, and not just like wild gingers. You have to crawl around the ground. This plant's gonna be up, in your face, kind of up to like 4 or 5 feet tall. So it's gonna be taller. It's gonna have very showy flowers, and it's gonna be flowering in the summer, which is kind of an interesting like trifecta of uncommon characteristics for a woodland flowering plant. Fact about this plant is that it's called the woodland bellflower, but instead of the flowers being shaped like a bell, they're shaped like a star. That's what I had for you for this week of Forbe Friday. Everybody have a happy 4th of July. I'd suggest staying inside for the rest of today at least. It's pretty warm out, but regardless, get outside and plant Iowa.